Hello, my name is Tony. It's Halloween. For a change. I have this memory. The rate I put it away, it's surprising I have any. But I have this one that has always remained with me since the early 70s. Tea time on BBC One, and they traditionally screened a raft of kid shows every weekday. It was on one of those, I can't remember which, Blue Peter, Ask Aspel, John Craven, something like that. There was a brief interview with that well-known children's entertainer, Christopher Lee. Yeah, no, odd. I remember being surprised. Not your usual child-friendly performer. Pleased though, as he and Peter Cushing were heroes of mine. My tastes were a bit different to most kids my age. Anyway, Lee was talking about a film he just made with Peter Cushing, titled Nothing But the Night. Struck me as a bit incongruous because the interviewer had to stress on a children's programme that it was not a film for children, and anyone would have to be 18 to see it. Yeah, I know, it doesn't make sense, but I swear it's true. Tea time, kid show, Chris Lee, plug in a film with an X certificate for adults only rating. Like, why not get Mr. Glenn Fiddick to talk about his latest single malt? Or Messrs. Benson and Hedges, that well-known double act, to proselytise over their latest carcinogenic killers. Then they showed a clip from it. Lee and Cushing, in a contemporary setting, stood on a car transporting ferry on the ocean, and they're talking to each other. Suddenly, and without warning, a boat in the distance explodes loudly in an impressive fireball.
There are some locals who try to take advantage of the
End of clip. Now this, I thought, is one I want to see. Cushing, Lee, modern setting, something blows up. I'm sold. As my local movie emporium wasn't big on caring what age I was, I made a resolution to keep an eye out for it. It was only about 15 months later, lightning speed in the sticks, it rolled along, towed into port as a second feature for the eccentric Vincent Price opus Theatre of Blood. So I went and I saw. Then it disappeared off the face of the earth as if it had never existed, and I never saw it again, although it might have popped up on Talking Pictures a while back, but I didn't catch it. Then recently, after reviewing Horror Express, a film in which Lee and Cushing appear reading from the same page as good guy protagonists, it reminded me that the same was true of Nothing But the Night. Time for a revisit, I thought. Only one problem. It remains seriously obscure, and has not graced the Blu-ray format thus far. However, I was able to source a reasonable, when I say reasonable, I mean reasonably crappy DVD copy. And so, for my sins, and to put a strain on your eyeballs, here is Nothing But the Review. Based on the novel of the same name by pulp sci-fi horror spy fiction author John Blackburn, the film kicks off with 3 murders of elderly people. A woman sat trance-like in a Morris Minor Traveller as the handbrake is released and the car rolls forward to plummet off a cliff. A man is pushed from the high balcony of a townhouse to splatter on the pavement. Another woman is shot in the face with a revolver as she sits in an armchair. It's either open season on Coffin Dodgers or Dignitas has gone mobile. Next up, a bunch of kids are on a coach trip singing 10 Green Bottles. It's fucking annoying. The driver is a miserable, intolerant sort who vocalises his animosity towards his passengers by calling them noisy little bastards. Lighting a cigarette, he sets himself on fire and crashes the coach. Don't see that every day, but it does prove they're harmful to your health. Children, that is. One of the kids lands in hospital on a paediatric ward under the care of psychiatrist Dr. Haynes, Keith Barron. The girl, Mary Valley, Gwyneth Strong, is delirious and sedated, raving about being burned in a fire, the death of someone called Vincent, and using a vocabulary inconsistent with her background and culture, like a past life experience almost. Mary is one of a group of orphans raised and cared for in, typically enough, an orphanage, one on the island of Bala off the Scottish coast. It's owned and run by the Van Tralen Trust, founded by Mary Van Tralen, and very rich and politically connected it is too. Remember those oldies bumped off earlier? They just happen to be trustees of the organisation. More have died recently. Enter Colonel Charles Bingham, Christopher Lee, a semi-retired high-ranking police detective who has petitioned the Home Secretary for reinstatement to investigate the deaths of the trustees. He is tight with Sir Mark Ashley, Peter Cushing, eminent pathologist and top dog at the hospital where Mary is being treated. He enlists his help and support with his investigation. Into the mix blunders Anna Harb, Diana Dawes, divorce, ex-prostitute, multiple murderer and Broadmoor detainee. She's the biological mother of Mary Valley. Her current profession is fortune teller. I'm guessing her psychic powers are a bit fake, judging by a complete lack of foresight. There's a lot she doesn't see coming. She wants her daughter back after she was taken into the care of the Van Tralen Trust years previously. The trust resists her overtures, despite her seeming to be ideal role model and parenting material. Hooker, murderer, fake psychic con merchant. What's not to love? They seem a tad anxious to have Mary discharged back to them as soon as possible. Maybe a bit too anxious. Harb goes to hard-bitten investigative journalist Joan Foster, Georgia Brown, to help fight her corner. Foster is only interested in a juicy story. She engages with Dr. Haynes and persuades him, through the tried and tested methodology of letting him into her knickers, to allow Harb to visit with her daughter at the hospital. Doesn't go well. Harb kicks off ranting that the Van Tralen Trust have done something to Mary and threatening to kill people. She's ejected by security. Haynes is found dead at Mary's bedside with Harb's sparkly hatpin driven into his temple. All roads lead to the island of Bala. Mary returns to the orphanage. Harb arrives there on the run and seeking retribution. Bingham, Ashley and Foster rock up to help with the operation to locate Harb and ultimately solve the mystery of the trustee murders. The final denouement takes on board neurosurgery, personality transplants, ritual murder, the secret of immortality, a big birthday bash with a bonfire and a Wicker Man flavoured folk horror blowout to cap it off. If this sounds like a fun-packed little psycho thriller, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, murder, mystery, drama mashup you really think you'd enjoy, just hold your horses a moment. I probably made it sound a good deal better than it is, which is hardly my fault. No, it isn't, because the basic treatment has a lot of promise and synonymous appeal. If I hadn't seen it, going on that alone, I would certainly want to give it a spin. I mean, just remember, Cushing, Lee and an exploding boat made my decision for me early doors, so if the synopsis has had the same effect on you, then there are some things you need to know before impetuously rushing off to seek it out and fire it up. Just stand the fuck down a minute. Nothing But the Night was the first, last and only film made by Christopher Lee's production company Charlemagne. He set it up with Hammer luminary Anthony Nelson Keys. It lasted the burning of a swan vesta in a tornado. That's not very long if you were wondering. Peter Sasdy was appointed to direct. Sasdy had a solid track record with Hammer. Films including Taste the Blood of Dracula, Countess Dracula and Hands of the Ripper. More prestigiously, he was at the helm of the Nigel Neal teleplay of The Stone Tape, a historic piece of TV that predicted the future of digital media, as well as being a remarkable revisionist ghost story. Unfortunately, his direction here is quite flat and mundane, like he's taken on the role of a detached observer rather than a dynamic participant. More a case of recording events as they play out instead of drawing and coordinating them with creative flair and style. The main problem we have is the script by Brian Hales. Hales was a jobbing TV writer working on Doctor Who, Zedcars, Public Eye and others. Following Nothing But the Night, he would produce screenplays for Bargain Basement, Brit fantasy flicks, Warlords of Atlantis and Arabian Adventure before his death in 1978. The dialogue and narrative he composes for Nothing But the Night are laboured and clunky, contrived and artificial, fracturing any conviction that people might speak or act like that. It doesn't help suspension of disbelief, and the viewer is left under no illusion that they're watching a movie. Considering the personal investment he had in the project, Christopher Lee doesn't seem to be at the top of his game. Perhaps the added responsibility of his own production company making the picture had an adverse impact. There is little comparison between his seemingly over-intense and terse performance here and his masterfully nuanced turn in The Wicker Man earlier. Peter Cushing, however, makes a better fist of his steely and precise pathologist, well at home in a lab with fragments of flesh and brain matter to analyse with his multitude of props. I'd watch both men together and individually in almost anything, and it's a given that they give their best performances of the piece. Diana Dawes, as her looks faded and she piled on the pounds, became either a declining good time girl or blousy harridan for hire. Here she's the latter, ranting and rampaging around the place or rolling about in the heather and bracken to evade capture by the most unobservant local and police search teams on the planet. Harb has been outdoors slapping and straining around for a while, so how the tracker dogs didn't pick up a whiff of her remains a mystery. Her demise on the bonfire is a climactic highlight though. She's also the film's big red herring. Has she been bumping off the trustees? Did she kill Dr. Haynes with a hat pin? Was it she who ritually carved up and mutilated the boy who went missing from the orphanage? Did she steal explosives from the quarry and blow up some more trustees on a boat? Well, the film wants you to think so for the most part, but, no. There's another explanation. What, if anything, is good about it? It manages to evoke a decent melancholic feel in places, which proves to be moderately unsettling, allowing for a grim, mournful ambiance. There is a minimal subversion of expectation. Keith Barron's character looks set to be the square-jawed hero of the piece. Then he gets killed off early on. Wouldn't have happened if he'd been American, I'm telling you. Doug McClure would have lived to punch those bloody kids right out. It might stimulate some thoughts on what influence it could have had on later films. Did it inspire Jordan Peele's directorial debut, Get Out? A film widely praised for its originality, yet the transplantation of the minds of the old into the young plot device is identical. No argument about which one came first here, but only by 44 years, so that's alright then. The shift to folk horror territory at the end is a nice eerie touch, and the death of the monster, who is in fact Mary Valley with the mind and memories of Mary Van Tralen, is an imaginative one. Bingham, after witnessing Harp getting torched alive by her own daughter, is secured with rope and about to be burned on the bonfire by the kids who aren't kids. Ashley and Foster arrive by helicopter. The downdraft of the rotors fans the flames in Mary's direction, setting her alight. She runs frantically, screams some impotent threats, then falls off that convenient cliff situated out back. The remaining children wordlessly follow her like lemmings to their doom. Fine place to build either an orphanage or psychiatric hospital, right near a sheer cliff with a killer drop to the rocks and sea. Always ends well. Is it worth watching? If you were Lee and Cushing completists, likely you already have your answer and have already seen it. If you are not, and you want something undemanding that won't give you nightmares, I must be honest and tell you, there is much better out there. On a boring Sunday afternoon with nothing else to do, it's a passable time burner, but keep those expectations on the lower side. Nothing But the Night was a missed opportunity. It had components in place that could have made it a success. Intriguing and imaginative narrative basis, 2 veteran horror fantasy stars up front, decent supporting cast, all that stuff. Lackluster direction and a largely poor script let it down badly. And there are not enough, if any, real shocks, chills and thrills, and certainly no explicit sex or gore. In a post-Exorcist world, it was always going to struggle to compete, but it could have put up so much more of a fight under the right circumstances. I have a feeling that Chris Lee was angling for a move away from his established image, yet ended up in the same sort of Frankenstein confection, only not as good. Before anyone mentions that I haven't mentioned Georgia Brown much, I'm going to mention her more now, and furthermore mention that she was a successful actress and singing star of several musicals on Broadway and in the West End, and featured as Worf's adopted mother Helena in 2 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. There, that should do it. Oh no, wait, I also know that Gwyneth Strong, who played Mary Valley, went on to play Cassandra in Only Fools and Horses. Fulton McKay found fame as a prison guard in the popular Ronnie Barker sitcom Porridge, and that's Michael Dumbledore Gambon over there as an island copper. No doubt I will have missed something someone thinks is critical to the review, and they'll no doubt tell me, you forgot to, etc. Go for it, I can hardly contain myself. Meanwhile, sincere thanks for your time and attention. Feel free to do whatever you choose to do next. Hit like, don't like, comment, subscribe, check out my early access Patreon thing, or even make a welcome financial contribution via the thanks button. All that remains for me to do now is wish you a happy Halloween, and advise that I won't be leaving you to rest in peace for long. Soon, pilgrims, soon.